Hello my Veggie friends, welcome to the channel, or welcome back if you are a returning subscriber. My name is Sophie, I'm the Midwest Magician, and today, since it is getting a little chilly here, we're shifting into soup season. I wanted to share my favorite soup recipe that happens to double as a prosperity spell. So if that sounds interesting to you, go ahead, keep watching, take some notes on the recipe. I'll have everything in the description box down below as well. Grab your cauldron and let's get started. Alright, so I have all of the ingredients laid out here. As far as the broth and the miso, and as you'll see in a moment, the seasonings go, those are kind of up to the chef slash spellcaster's discretion. I think the most important part is going to be the main ingredients that we're adding to the soup, and I will have everything again in the description box down below. And here we have our seasonings. I like my soup to be a little bit spicy. And then we also have this little bundle of rosemary, we have thyme, and we have garden sage, all of which we grew in our own garden. So the real star of the show here is the butternut squash, and for me this is going to symbolize not only nourishment but abundance and prosperity. As I am chopping everything up and preparing the butternut squash, and as you'll see the rest of the ingredients as well, I do kind of like to wake them up for the spell. I am an animist, so I do believe in kind of telling the ingredients what I am using them for and what I am waking them up for. So for the butternut squash, I really just want to let it know that I am inviting it into this recipe to bring prosperity, to bring nourishment, and to bring abundance to the spell. And while I'm taking time with all of my ingredients individually, I do like to take a moment with each one to ground myself. And for this, I typically for spell work, I would close my eyes, but as I'm chopping, I'm not going to put myself in that kind of harm's way. But I do like to sit and visualize how each ingredient for this spell is going to bring abundance and prosperity into my life. And that could be with any kind of kitchen spell work that you're doing. For this one specifically, it's going to be for finances, but you could also be doing a prosperity spell for health. You could be doing it for love, or really anything that you see fit in your life. And really quickly, as a side note, I am not somebody who's going to waste any kind of food. So I'm using all of these seeds in a recipe for another time. I just really love to bake them with a little bit of seasoned salt. They're such a delicious snack. So with my onions, I do have two for this recipe, and I have one sweet onion and one red onion. And obviously onions are just amazing for flavor, but for the reason I have two separate onions for this spell is that I use one for clarity and one for insight. So for the sweet onion, I like to use this one for the insight, and for the red onion, I like to use that for the clarity. I like the red onion for clarity a little bit more because it's a little bit punchier of a flavor. So for that reason, I feel like it's just a little bit better for the clarity portion. I believe the next ingredient that I'll be chopping is going to be garlic, and I am a garlic, oh my gosh, do you see my fingers are stained orange? I am a garlic lover, so for this recipe I'm using 2 entire bulbs of garlic, and that is really going to be a personal preference as far as flavor goes. But for me, the garlic is used for protection, so that's going to block anything from preventing the spell from coming to fruition. And as you see, I'm using olive oil and I'm using some pepper. I think pepper is great for protection too, and the olive oil is for wealth and prosperity as well. I have some nutritional yeast just because I love the flavor, and the same thing for the salt. I feel like it kind of adds a purification, but it's mostly just for flavor. And just like that, it's ready for the oven. When I put it into the oven, I do say I invite prosperity into my life because I feel like that intention is going to be baked into my spell. And at this point, I am just prepping my broth to go onto the burner to boil. I add my vegetable stock, I add my miso paste, and I use the miso as a prosperity ingredient as well. And then I do add some water as well as my seasonings for the broth. So that's going to be my little herb bundle, some crushed red pepper, and that's going to be for protection as well. I really want to make sure that this prosperity comes to me and keep my spell protected at all costs. Again, nutritional yeast for the flavor and just a little bit of pepper for the extra layer of protection. And at this point, my broth is ready to go onto the stove. So when I put it on the stove, I do say, just as my broth simmers, my abundance grows. And I'm going to add in potatoes as well. And I feel like potatoes are just great for abundance. You can plant one of those little eyes and get an entire 5 to 10 potatoes from that one. So I just really love potatoes for prosperity and abundance. And this is my little secret ingredient that I add as a topping to the soup. So I will be adding walnuts, and I just personally like them. They're great for your brain, good protein. And then I really want to sweeten this spell to me, and I want it to stick to me. I want the prosperity to stick, and I want it to be sweet to the idea of coming to me. So I add a lot of maple syrup, and then my last ingredient is cinnamon, which is great for prosperity and abundance. This next part is just mainly a cooking tip, which I wish I used to have an immersion blender. It broke, so I have to use my regular blender. So I will be blending up the potatoes just to make it an extra creamy and extra hearty soup. There's not really anything magical about this part, although you can say either just as my soup simmers, my abundance grows, or my prosperity grows, or you can say what we said when we were putting the soup into the oven, or the butternut squash in the oven. We could say, I invite prosperity into my life at the point that you're blending and re-adding it into your pot as well. And just our luck, as we're finished blending our potatoes, our butternut squash and onions and garlic are ready to come out of the oven to also be blended and added to our soup. They look so good. Oh my gosh, I want to make this soup again already. It's so easy and it's so delicious. The butternut squash kind of falls apart as you are grabbing it, but you can just put it right into the blender. You technically can blend the skin, but I don't really like to, so I leave the skin behind. But at this point, I just add everything to my blender again, and I make sure that I am inviting prosperity into my life when I'm blending it again. At the end, I do have an incantation for when the soup is all completely ready, but I do like to add in my affirmations and my encouraging words to the ingredients as I'm blending them, baking them throughout the whole process, even adding them back into the simmering pot of soup. I do like to keep my incantations very short and sweet. While I stir the pot, I say, butternut squash, vibrant and bright, bring forth prosperity day and night. As I stir this pot, my spell aligns, nourishment and prosperity, let them entwine. So mote it be, it's time to eat our soup. And that is it for my prosperity butternut squash soup. With the right ingredients and a sprinkle of intention, we made our soup into a prosperity spell, and it is just that simple. As always, I will have everything linked in the description box just down below. I'll have the full ingredients list, the full recipe, correspondences, and as always, feel free to make adjustments for your taste preference, for your intention preference, whatever. Feel free to make adjustments. If you made it this far in the video, can you leave me a little sparkle emoji? I love to see who makes it to the end. If you try the recipe, or if you're going to do a variation of it, will you also let me know in the comments down below? This one is actually mine and my husband's favorite soup that I make, so I'm really excited to share it with you all. That's all I have for today. Thank you so much for being here, and I will see you very soon in the next video. Bye.